Are you a citizen from the EU EEA and are looking to develop your career in another country? This film about Sweden could be useful for you. With a booming economy, interesting jobs available, and a high quality of life, Sweden remains a well-kept secret. This short film, produced by EURES Sweden, provides you with a quick overview of what you need to know about living and working in Sweden. The Swedish economy remains strong, and both the private and the public sector continue to develop. Jobs are being generated all over the country. Demand for labor is expected to remain high with many vacancies. Employers need and want to recruit, but because employers can't find the right profiles, they have a hard time to expand their businesses. In various areas, trained and qualified staff is hard to find. Therefore, qualified workers from abroad are welcome to Sweden. There are very few jobs that require only very low or no formal education. As a minimum, a completed upper secondary school education is required, but in most cases, also an occupational training or even a university-level degree is necessary to get a job. If you wish to live and work in Sweden, learning the language is very important. You'll find it difficult to get a job without at least a basic knowledge of Swedish. Most jobs require fluency, with some exceptions where English is the working language. There are various options to learn Swedish. You can also learn Swedish online. The Swedish Institute offers courses on different levels. There is an overall shortage of skilled labor in Sweden. Various areas are looking for the following professions: teachers and preschool teachers, nurses, doctors and social workers, qualified IT staff, engineers, electricians, plumbers and construction workers, chefs, mechanics, lorry drivers. There's exciting work for you waiting right here in Sweden. If you are a Nordic citizen, you're free to settle and work in Sweden without a residence permit. If you're an EU and EEA citizen who has an employment, or owns a business, or studies, or has sufficient funds to support yourself, you and your family members have the right of residence in Sweden without a residence permit. Even if you're unemployed, you have the right to come to Sweden and look for a job. When you've found a job, contact the Swedish tax agency to register for taxation. In connection with the tax registration, you can receive a coordination number. This will be your identity number until you are eligible to receive a Swedish personal identity number. If you intend to stay for more than 1 year, you must apply for registration as a resident at the Swedish tax agency. If your application is approved, you will receive a Swedish personal identity number. As a non-EU citizen with long-term residency in another EU country, you must apply for a new residence permit for Sweden if you want to stay longer than 3 months in Sweden. This is done at the Swedish Migration Agency. In Sweden, you're expected to look for a job by yourself. This means you'll have to be proactive, network, make use of digital information, and apply for jobs online. Here are some ideas. If you're based in another country and are looking for vacancies in Sweden, they can be found on the EURES portal. You can also register your CV on the portal and get general information about living and working in Sweden. A good idea is to speak to a EURES staff in your home country before you leave. If you need individual advice in Sweden, EURES staff can also be found at Arbetsförmedlingen, the Swedish public employment service. Arbetsförmedlingens website, Platsbanken, is the largest and most popular job site. It's an open public site and can be used without registering as a job seeker. You can search for jobs by location and by profession, or find employers' contact details in order to contact them directly. You can also create your profile on a CV database called Mina sidor, and by that make it searchable for employers who are looking for candidates. Of course, there are also many other ways to look for a job. Here are some ideas. Use personal contacts. Contact private employment and staffing agencies. Use other job sites such as monster.se, blocketjob.se, metrojob.se, and jobsafari.se. Daily and local newspapers contain a large number of job adverts, mostly advertised online. Look for vacancies on companies' own websites. It's common to apply directly to an employer for whom you would like to work for. Register on and use social media such as Facebook and LinkedIn when looking for work. When you have found an interesting advert or you want to make a spontaneous application, the next step is to send your CV and a personal letter. Limit your CV to around 2 computer-written A4 pages. Also, the personal letter should be very short, no more than 1 page, and clearly state why you think you're suitable for the job. When applying for a job in Sweden, you can also use the CV format Europass. Don't bother sending certificates or references. They can be sent later when requested. It's always good to follow up with a phone call a couple of days later. When called for an interview, make sure you're well prepared. Read up on the company and on the advertised position before the interview. You'll have to answer questions about why you have applied for this job and your background, such as education, previous employment, and leisure interests. It's also common to be asked to describe your strengths and weaknesses and how they may impact on the job for which you're applying. You'll also be expected to ask questions of your own at the end of the interview. Sometimes you may be called to a second or even a third interview and be asked to take tests of various kinds, depending on the type of job you're applying for. For financial support, information, and job matching, look up the EU mobility schemes, Your First Yours Job, and Reactivate. You may be entitled to some support to attend an interview in Sweden, as well as to cover costs for language training, recognition of qualifications, or relocation to Sweden. There is no statutory minimum income in Sweden. Instead, a basic income is negotiated in many collective agreements. Salaries are set individually, and as a new employee, you're expected to negotiate your own starting salary. Standard working hours in Sweden are 40 hours per week. Flex time is very common. Overtime is limited to 48 hours over a 4-week period, or 50 hours over a period of 1 month. As an employee, you're entitled to at least 25 days paid leave per year and to at least 4 weeks continuous leave in the period from June to August, with some exceptions. Other terms are regulated in the employment contract, such as your salary, working hours, employment duration, probation period, notice period, and holidays. An employment contract may be verbal or written, but it's always recommended to ask the employer for a written confirmation to avoid misunderstandings. As a basic principle, EU, EEA, and Swiss citizens should be able to practice their profession in any other member state. However, certain legally regulated professions require specific certification or authorization before being able to work in those professions. You can contact the Swedish Council for Higher Education to inform yourself about evaluation and recognition of foreign qualifications. The Swedish tax system consists of direct taxes such as state tax and municipal income tax, and taxes on national capital gains, as well as indirect taxes and charges such as VAT and duties on certain products. When you get a job, the employer will pay you a net salary. Your income tax is deducted at source. Your employer will also pay an additional employer's contribution to the Swedish tax agency. The municipal income tax lies on average at 32% of your salary. This tax includes all social insurance contributions except unemployment insurance contributions. If your taxable income exceeds a certain amount, you also pay state income tax. If you live abroad and work in Sweden for less than 6 months, there is a possibility of paying lower tax. As an employee, you're entitled to receive a written salary specification showing your salary and the deductions made. Everyone is obliged to file an income tax return with the Swedish tax agency each year, usually around May 1st. When you move within the EU, EEA and Switzerland, there are rules ensuring that you don't lose your social security rights. As a general principle, you are subject to the legislation of the country where you work. However, in some cases, qualification periods are required. So if you work in Sweden, you are most likely covered by the Swedish Social Security Scheme, which includes benefits in respect of accidents at work and occupational diseases, health insurance, invalidity benefits, family benefits and parental insurance, sick leave, and old age and survivors' pensions. Unemployment benefits in Sweden come in 2 levels: a basic level protection and a voluntary income-based protection based on a membership and paid contributions to unemployment benefit fund for at least 1 year. To apply for unemployment benefit, you need to register with Arbetsförmedlingen as a job seeker. If you're unemployed and receive unemployment benefits in your home country, it's possible to bring your unemployment benefit with you for a limited period of time when looking for a job in Sweden. To do this, you must apply for the document U2 in your home country before coming to Sweden. Should you have any additional questions about working in Sweden, you can always consult the EURES network or speak to a EURES staff. So hurry up! Your dream job could be waiting for you right here in Sweden.